Really tell me, who do you think has a better case to win Coach of the Year? Is it Shane Steichen or DeMeco Ryans? And after you give me who you think has a better case, you can give me who you think should win Coach of the Year between those two, or anybody else that you want to throw out there, wild card name. Drew, you can start.
I think my coach of the year is going to be Shane Steichen for the idea that he lost his rookie quarterback going in with Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew, who's not a bad backup by any means, he's come in, he's done a fine job. Now, you were without Jonathan Taylor for the first 4 weeks of the season. Zach Moss comes in. He's one of the more efficient backs in the league in that absence of JT. JT comes back. We're starting to see JT come to form, and then he goes down again. And then they kind of go on this little skid, but you look at how their offense still has been able to stay slightly above average with a backup quarterback, a strong number one option in a Michael Pittman, an in and out of the lineup, Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, who these last couple of weeks has been okay. But again, they just happen to just keep winning games. And then you look at this game versus the Steelers. You look at the game versus the Ravens. I look at the Indianapolis Colts, and I just think that they might have bigger wins than the Houston Texans. The win versus the Broncos most definitely was huge. And then I, or I guess you could say, you could credit that game versus the Jaguars early on in the season. That definitely was a big win, but I just don't see a win that the game versus the Bengals. I'm kind of chatting. That game versus the Bengals was pretty great, but the game versus the Ravens, where the Colts were also coming in, we weren't anticipating that the Colts would even be in a contest like that with the Baltimore Ravens. Zach Moss goes out there and has himself a great game. I just look at the strengths of both of these coaches. Shane Steichen's an offensive mind. DeMeco Ryans is a defensive mind. The best part to the Houston Texans has been their offense, and of course, CJ Stroud. You look at both of these teams, neither of these teams had expectations coming in. If you want to say you didn't have the expectations for the Colts, the same is to be said for the Texans. But Shane Steichen's strength has been his offense, and I look at his offense and his strength being better than DeMeco's and his strengths over there in Houston. And I think that at the end of this, with the idea that Gardner Minshew, of course, right now we only have report that CJ Stroud, he did miss last week. He is on track to miss this upcoming game versus the Cleveland Browns with a concussion. I think that we'll see the Indianapolis Colts scratch out that last spot in the AFC South for the wild card. I still believe that the Jaguars will win the AFC South. But in terms of wild card of these two teams, the Colts will get in, and it will lead to Shane Steichen winning the Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I also lean Shane Steichen here. Look at last season's Colts team. I mean, that team was a disaster all the way around. 30th in points per game, 27th in yards per game. Of course, that was the Matt Ryan, Jeff Saturday experience. But I think what Drew said, I'm going to agree with, right? Shane Steichen came in and took over one of the worst offenses in football, made them top 10 in points, top 13 in yards, while losing their quarterback one and one of the best running backs in football in Jonathan Taylor. And this isn't maybe the most fair, but I think it's valid to say, look what's happening in Philadelphia. You know, Shane Steichen leaves, and you see that offense, I don't want to say completely fall apart because season totals, they're still one of the better offenses, but they haven't been nearly as dominant as what they were last year. Again, strength of schedule hasn't been the same. They've gone through a gauntlet of teams these last 5 or 6 weeks. But Shane Steichen has gone over to Indianapolis. He was great with Anthony Richardson. He's been great with Gardner Minshew. And it's not to take away what DeMeco Ryans has done. The defense has improved from last season. They're about 15th, 16th in terms of yards and points allowed per game. But also having CJ Stroud for the full season is a huge advantage, right? If Anthony Richardson was healthy, what does this Colts team look like? We could be looking at a team that maybe has 10 wins and an outside chance fighting for the number one seed, which is crazy because both of these teams, the Texans and the Colts, two of the biggest overachievers in the NFL. Coming into this season, I think most of us had them under 5 or 6 wins at the absolute most. I think I had these teams both projected as like 3-4 win teams with rookie quarterbacks and first-time head coaches. So they're both doing a tremendous job. But like Drew mentioned, Shane Steichen is doing it on his side of the ball offense, and they've turned into one of the better offenses with the backup quarterback, while DeMeco Ryans has had the luxury of having a young franchise quarterback rookie who's been healthy throughout most of the season, while the defense has been respectable, but not really the reason they've been winning games.
It's crazy how much these two teams have taken steps forward because last year these are two of the biggest dumpster fires in football. To me, DeMeco Ryans deserves a ton of credit for his defensive improvement, like a Jonathan Grenard this year, 12 and a half sacks, the development of guys like Blake Cashman, former New York Jet linebacker. Ryans has done an awesome job with that defense since his days in San Francisco. But to me, I'm going to have to agree with y'all. I have to go with Shane Steichen. Taking that Colts offense, which was third to last in the NFL, to eighth this year with not a great supporting cast. I watched firsthand my Steelers. His ability to scheme out TJ Watt without his starting right tackle, down both of his running backs. We haven't even talked about the quarterback situation. Gardner Minshew has been far from perfect this year, but the play calling has been top 5 in the NFL probably. And I feel like Indianapolis' offensive line getting back on track, the run game being established, and the development of Michael Pittman Jr., everything has come together with that offense. And while their defense ranks 27th in the NFL, there's still been some players who have really stepped up, most notably Zaire Franklin. I think Steichen is giving off a little bit of Brian. One of y'all made that comparison last episode, giving off a little bit of Brian Dable vibes here. Better supporting cast, better overall talent than last year's Giants team, but the play calling has been second to none. And altogether, I think he deserves the edge with the Colts being a 4.5 win team. Now they're currently at 8 wins.
I guess I'm the only person that's going to take the Houston Texans here. I mean, my goodness, I'm going to take DeMeco Ryans, and it's because the Texans last year were genuinely a dumpster fire. They were a terrible team. We all knew they were going to be bad. The Colts, I thought they was going to be good. Y'all thought they would be mid, but nobody thought they'd be that bad. And they started the season out 3-5-1. And then with Jeff Saturday, they won one game, and then they proceeded to lose 7 straight. So for me, I think the Colts had a roster that had some talent on it that could have churned out more wins had they had a serviceable head coach and not a coach that was hired from ESPN, just straight out of ESPN. So I think the Colts could have won some more games. Look, I respect Jeff Saturday, but as a coach, he didn't really live up to the bill. Now, here's DeMeco Ryans' case. The Texans were 3-13-1 last season. 1 year later, right now, they stand at 8-6. They went from the 30th ranked offense to the 27th ranked defense to the 15th ranked offense and 15th ranked defense. They have dealt with injuries to the offensive line early in the year, and they have a breakout rookie quarterback, wide receiver, breakout rookie edge rusher. I mean, all guys that we expected them to be, I guess, good, but this great early on, I don't think so. And I don't think it's fair to knock DeMeco for just being a defensive coach when he had to put together a staff and he had to draft these players and he had a lot to say. And the decisions that he made were right. I mean, he got criticized on draft day for trading up and drafting Will Anderson. He got criticized for that. True. And I want to let go of this notion against DeMeco Ryans that the offense is carrying this team, because it feels like the case for Shane Steichen is, well, the offense has made a more drastic improvement than DeMeco Ryans has made for the Texans defense. And while the statistics may say that, when you look at the games the Texans have won, they have won 6 of their 8 games by holding their opponents to 17 points or less. So we're talking about 80% of their games, they are winning because of their defense. CJ Stroud has been amazing. He has put up numbers, but they held the Jaguars to 17 points. They held the Steelers to 6 points when they were healthy. They held the Saints to 13 points. They held the Cardinals to 16 points, the Broncos to 17 points, and just recently the Titans to 16 points. They
just let the Jets score 30.
These aren't top-notch offenses, but then again, they're still winning games with their defense. They won 6 games with their defense, and just this past week, you don't have CJ Stroud, you don't have Nico, you don't have Tank Dell, and you still managed to come back and get a win on the road against Tennessee. You're right. The Jets torched them. They scored a lot of points on the Texans. Zach Wilson had a great game. But are you taking away from the Broncos defense and what they've done this year and how they turn around because the Jets scored 30 on them, because the Dolphins scored 70 on them? I mean, bad games happen. It happens to everybody. Shane Steichen's Colts team, their offense has not been perfect every single game. I mean, how many has every single game have the Colts offense, have they scored a ton of points? I'm looking at the regular season, and in wins, they've scored 22 points, 23 points. In losses, There was one game where they scored 10 points against the Patriots in a win.
There was a game against the Browns where they put up 38 points, and that's when the Browns were seemingly unstoppable.
You're right, but then they scored 14 points versus the Bengals in a loss against a backup quarterback. So I mean,
Texans against the Texans week 2,
31 against the Titans,
yep.
27 against the Bucks, 27 against the Panthers, 23 against the Titans again. Really, the only one is that Patriots game where they put up 10 points. Other than that, they're putting up a minimum of 21 points.
But you're talking about the Patriots game and then the Bengals game, 10 points and 14 points. So if we want to look at a blimp in a resume, I mean, yeah, they have some games where they're not putting up the most points offensively. The Bengals defense this year has given up a lot of points. They've given up a lot of points, and they only managed to score 14, and they had a ton of turnovers and couldn't execute properly in the red zone. So, I mean, you have those moments with every coach. It's not nobody's going to be perfect, but I think DeMeco Ryans not being the leading candidate because he's a defensive coach, I think discredits him for putting together a fantastic staff. Because while you can say the offense is the highlight of the Texans, I just told you they've won most of their games because of defense. 6 of the 8, they have held teams to 17 points or less. And I think it's a credit to him for putting together a coaching staff that has gotten the best out of their rookie quarterback. And before he got hurt with the concussion, he was on pace to have one of the best rookie quarterback seasons ever.
Yeah, I just think that Shane Steichen, the fact that he's having a backup quarterback, that's highbreaking for me. DeMeco Ryans has a case. I think he should be top 3 consideration, top 2 consideration. But the fact that Shane Steichen is doing it with the backup, it's more so that Shane Steichen is doing this with his issues more so than DeMeco Ryans being able to overcome his issues in the way they're winning. If it was the other way around, if DeMeco is doing the backup quarterback, I would lean that way too.
But Dels, I don't bet Gardner Minshew's a backup. But I think he's a spot starter. He's not somebody that you cannot get good production from if you have a good game plan around him. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr.
Starter, though, he's playing all year. Like spot starters, like yes, play a couple games here or there. He's played the entire season.
Michael Pittman Jr. He's been amazing this year. Josh Downs has been amazing this year. Alec Pierce has been recently. Just another. Yeah, but Josh Downs for the most part, he's had one of the better rookie wide receivers. So I understand Steichen's case. I mean, you don't have Taylor for most of the year. That hurts. But I think the difference is that CJ Stroud, he's shown us that consistently he's played at the top level. Anthony Richardson, I mean, who knows if they would have the same record with him than with Gardner Minshew. It probably is the same, but who knows what's the gap. You know, I love Anthony Richardson, but his accuracy was spotty early on in the year. He was getting a lot of explosive plays, but his accuracy was spotty, where Gardner Minshew is a more accurate quarterback on a down-to-down basis. And he was the quarterback for the team when they beat the Ravens as well. I think that was a game where Richardson got hurt.
Advanced statistics, kind of a bitch. Advanced statistics tell us that CJ Stroud's one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the league. Hogwash, watched the game. Obviously, statistically, he's awesome. I agree, AR wasn't the most accurate quarterback, but he showed us some moments. That game versus the Rams that they had no business being in, he comes back, leads a game-tying drive to send it into OT. They just couldn't finish the job. I'm just saying, CJ's been awesome, but AR also showed us some things early on. Wasn't accurate, not even a little bit, but again, on the ground, still was able to impact the game in that way, showed some great things. His season ended too soon for us to get a full picture. But again, CJ's been great. It hasn't been perfect. He's a rookie. You're allowed your leeways. But I still think that some credit be given to AR that I think that he still would have been able to execute a job and ultimately still win some ball games for the Indianapolis Colts. But again, that's if ands. That's obviously a world that we don't know yet.
I think so. But all I'm saying is that I don't think Gardner Minshew is a low-level backup. Like, even if you think he's backup quarterback,
he's the best.
He's one of the best backups, and he's somebody that he can be a spot starter in a good situation, and he could play really well. Like, he is capable of that. And the Colts defense also has not been terrible. Like, the Colts defense has been great in stretches for them to close out games.
The one difference to me,
they make a lot of big plays, a lot of block punts and kicks and shit. Go ahead, John.
They've had a lot of Indianapolis to kind of be the tiebreaker here, signature wins, beating Baltimore, dominating Pittsburgh, beating the Texans. And I think that level of difficulty and the way they've stepped up for his better teams That would be the separator here, because I also don't think with CJ Stroud's injury, the injuries of wide receiver, the Texans are going to sustain this. I think Indianapolis can, because they've already done this through hell and high water.
Like
Zach Taylor getting any love here?
What's up?
Zach Taylor getting any love here? Dealing with the Joe Burrow injury early in the
He
season.
needs to get love.
Back is great, then gets hurt, and Jake Brown is fucking undefeated out here. I do think the Texans have the best signature win, beating the Bengals, the red hot Bengals who were beating everybody up. I think that's probably the best win out of both of these coaches' resumes.